My name is Bob, and I'm a sex and love addict. By the grace of God, the 12 steps, the fellowship, and good sponsorship, I have been sober from all bottom-line addictive behavior on a daily basis, one day at a time for 10,770 days today, and for that I am but will never be sufficiently grateful. I want to talk about the 5 major resources found in our preamble, which is read at the beginning of nearly every SLAA meeting. To counter the destructive consequences of sex and love addiction, we draw on 5 major resources. Too many SLAA members can't tell you what those major resources are. They are 1. Sobriety, 2. Sponsorship/meetings, 3. Steps, 4. Service, and 5. Spirituality. I'm going to cover each resource in order. I change all quotes to first person present tense when possible. That makes them personal to me. The first major resource is sobriety. My willingness to stop acting out in my own personal bottom line addictive behavior on a daily basis. So what is sobriety in SLAA? Here are 3 quotes from the SLAA basic text, changed to first person present tense. Number 1, I recognize that I am powerless, not merely to change some specific sex partner, lover, or situation. I am powerless over an addictive pattern of which any current specific circumstance is just the most recent example. 2, the proof that my surrender is indeed unconditional is that I now refrain one day at a time from every form of bottom-line addictive behavior I see as part of my own addictive pattern. And 3, I am now willing to go to any length, a day at a time, to stay unhooked. It took me 6 months to get my first 30 days of sobriety. I tried in vain to control my behavior, to prove I had power. I would go to strip clubs and not act out. I would watch pornography and not act out. I would look at adult magazines and not act out. Sometimes I lasted for up to 3 or 4 days of not acting out and then have a slip. I'm so intelligent, I honestly couldn't figure out why I couldn't stay sober. I really wanted to. I had every intention of doing so, yet I kept having slips. You must understand, I'm different. I think they call it terminal uniqueness. Like I said, it took me 6 months to get 30 days. That's when the light came on. I had to change my behavior. I had to change my playgrounds. I had to change my playmates, pun intended. I decided to throw my collection of porno magazines and videos away. I got 2 large plastic trash bags and tossed it all in. Trash collection was on Wednesday morning. Tuesday night, I went through the bags and rescued the best stuff. The following week, I did the same thing. It took 4 weeks to throw it all away. Then I joined AA and stopped drinking. This, combined with going to meetings, not going to strip clubs, and not using pornography, made it much easier to stay sober. In fact, I stayed sober for 4 years. Then I had a relapse that lasted nearly 9 months. But that's a story for another talk. When I finally got sober, I had a pretty long list of things I couldn't do. I couldn't go to bars, strip clubs or otherwise. I couldn't watch R-rated movies. I couldn't look at pornography. I couldn't masturbate. In fact, I couldn't have sex of any kind. I don't remember when it happened because I was only aware of it much later. All of the things I couldn't do became things I could not do. I could not go to clubs and bars. I could not watch R-rated movies. I could not look at pornography. I could not masturbate. They became positive statements, no longer negative ones. Today, I draw on major resource 1, sobriety. My willingness to stop acting out in my own personal bottom-line addictive behavior on a daily basis. The second major resource is sponsorships/meetings. My capacity to reach out for the supportive fellowship within SLAA. It is not by accident that this is resource number 2. Picking up the 1,000-pound phone is a joke that has been around for much longer than I have. and I went to my first SLAA meeting in September of 1986. I believe the 1,000-pound phone joke started many years ago in Alcoholics Anonymous. One area in which I often experience difficulty is in continuing to be open and forthright about my feelings, motives, and my expectations of others. It is important that I stay current with my sponsor and my home group about my day-to-day experiences in life and my many relationships. More about home groups later. I was surprised to find out just how many relationships I have. I have relationships with my wife, my 4 children, my 7 granddaughters, the rest of my family, the people I work with, people in my recovery community, my neighbors, my friends not in recovery. I quit counting at 100. I had no idea there were that many relationships. I may hide disappointment, hurt, fear, or anger under a facade of acceptance. Keeping these emotions secret will lead me back to acting out on my bottom lines. Going to SLAA meetings and sharing about my thoughts and feelings helps in 2 ways. It lets my group know what's going on in my life and lets newcomers know they're not the only ones who feel that way. If I keep silent about mild fantasies that come to mind over some person with whom I have repeated contact, assuring myself privately that of course I will do nothing about it, is saying to myself, I'm not powerless over my sex and love addiction. What I need to do as soon as I become aware of any thoughts, behaviors that are connected to my addiction is pick up that 1,000-pound phone and call someone, admitting to myself and someone else that I am still powerless and I still need help. I need to let my sponsor know as soon as possible. In fact, he is the number 1 call I should make on that extremely heavy phone, unless I know he can't take the call because of work or family obligations. And I need to get current at meetings. Today I have a resource that didn't exist when SLAA started. I can send a text message from that heavyweight cell phone in my pocket. But that does not replace sharing with my sponsor and at meetings. Today I draw on major resource 2. Sponsorship/meetings, my capacity to reach out for the supportive fellowship within SLAA. The third major resource is STEPS, my practice of the 12-step program of recovery to achieve sexual and emotional sobriety. On page 66 of the SLAA basic text, it states, we recommend that you also read the books Alcoholics Anonymous, especially chapters 5 to 7 and 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Those books are not conference-approved reading. They are conference-recommended reading. In the AA Big Book, they never reference working the steps. They always refer to taking the steps. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. The SLAA slogan is, I am not alone. I am a member of SLAA if I say I am. I become a member of the we of the fellowship. The third tradition states, the only requirement for SLAA membership is the desire to stop living out a pattern of sex and love addiction. I become a part of a great whole. We, the members of the SLAA fellowship. I don't even have to stop acting out, but I do need a desire to do so. But there is a second we, an exceptionally important we. The we of the program is the first word of the first step and is implied in steps 2 through 12. We admitted we were powerless over sex and love addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. I admit I am powerless over sex and love addiction, that my life is unmanageable. This is a special we the we who have taken all 12 steps. There is a vast difference between the we of the fellowship, I'm a member if I say I am, and the we of the program, we who have taken all 12 steps. Both are important and both are necessary. The we of the fellowship is the second resource. The we of the program is the third resource. Having the desire to stop acting out makes me a member of the Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous Fellowship. The we of the fellowship, the second resource. But to recover from sex and love addiction and be a part of the program of Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous, that particular we requires that I take all 12 steps. Today, I draw on Major Resource 3, my practice of the 12-step program of recovery to achieve sexual and emotional sobriety. The fourth major resource is service. My giving back to the SLAA community what I continue to freely receive. I have been involved in service since I first came to SLAA. I started by helping to make sure the room was open and the chairs were properly arranged. In time, I chaired meetings. I was a treasurer, general services representative, delegate to the Fellowship-wide Services annual business meeting, editor of the journal, and member of the board of trustees. I still chair a Sunday afternoon Zoom meeting for newcomers. And I am the speaker seeker for a nightly online meeting. There are many ways to do service, those I mentioned before, and those that help my home group be self-supporting. What is a home group? And what is self-supporting? Traditionally, most SLAA members have found it important to belong to one group that they call their home group. I have found it important to belong to one group that I call my home group. My home group is where I accept service responsibilities and sustain friendships, and I do everything possible to attend every meeting. Group members are people who know me, listen to me, and steer me straight when I am off in left field. My home group is where I celebrate sobriety anniversaries, receive and present sobriety chips, and often have cake or cookies to help celebrate. That's my favorite part, by the way. Service also means to serve at the intergroup, state, and national levels. The seventh tradition states, every SLAA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. My home group participates in higher levels of service. This is also part of observing the seventh tradition. As a group, we support SLAA at all levels, not just financially, but with people to help do the work, not letting other groups do that service for us. Today, I draw on Major Resource 4, Service, my giving back to the SLAA community what I continue to freely receive. The fifth major resource is spirituality, my developing a relationship with a power greater than myself, which can guide and sustain me in recovery. I think this is the most important resource. It is my relationship with God that keeps me sober. I am powerless over sex and love addiction. God has the power to keep me sober. My life is unmanageable. God can manage my life. Paraphrasing the AA Big Book on page 60 and the ABCs, and as I usually do, I change this to first person present tense. A, that I am a sex and love addict and cannot manage my own life. This is step 1. B, that probably no human power can relieve my sex and love addiction. This is step 2. C, that God can and will if he is sought. This is still step 2. While God can manage my life and keep me sober, God doesn't do that. If God did that, I would never have started acting out and screwing up my life in the first place. It is my relationship with God, conscious contact with God, that keeps me sober. I build that relationship with God by taking the steps and through the regular use of prayer and meditation. If you want to have a relationship with anyone, you need to communicate with them. To have a relationship with my sponsor, I must communicate with my sponsor. If I want a relationship with my friends, I must communicate with my friends. If I want to have a relationship with God, I must communicate with God. I communicate with God through prayer and meditation. The purpose of prayer is not to get God's attention, it is to give Him mine. Again, the purpose of prayer is not to get God's attention, it is to give Him mine. I believe I have always had God's attention. Today I pray only for knowledge of God's will for me, and what I believe are the most important words in the 12 steps, the last 7 words in step 11, and the power to carry that out. For a long time, I regularly prayed for knowledge of God's will for me. God, just let me know what you want me to do, and I will do it. Just show me your will for me. Show me what you want me to be, and I will be it. Even when I knew God's will for me, the necessary power wasn't there. I am powerless. God has power. I ask Him for it. I like this story. Imagine God standing at a conveyor belt of new souls ready to be born. He has a stamp that reads SLAA, and occasionally will stamp the forehead of a new soul passing by. An angel standing next to God asks, "Why are you stamping only a few of the new souls?" God answers, "I seek most people to come unto me. These special souls will seek me to come unto them." Conscious contact with God solves every problem I have. The 12 steps remove the things in me that separate me from God. In step 11, I seek through prayer and meditation to improve, not to prove, to improve my conscious contact with God, praying only for knowledge of God's will for me. And the last 7 most important words, and the power to carry that out. Thank you.